This is Blight 555 on the PlayStation Network or in YouTube land. I am known as Tuxedo Trunks or Tux Trunks. So if it's your first time with us, thank you so much for joining. Now I'm going to break it down a little bit for you guys. I'm going to go over my build, the current equipment that I have, and then we'll see about going in to run some sets for Greater Rift. Currently, I am rocking the Season 20 Crusader Hammer build. As far as skills are concerned, I'm rocking Iron Skin with Flash. This is a nice ability, so when you're trying to just survive, this will let you not only get a buff, well, it'll protect you from most damage, but it'll also, while it's active, let you move faster and move through enemies unhindered. So that's nice too, especially if you get surrounded by an elite pack and you need to get out really quick. Also helps with movement mitigation because this build really doesn't have much. The core ability for this build, Blessed Hammer with Limitless. Hammer spins around you. Limitless increases the size of the hammer, and almost every piece of gear kind of mitigates that as well. Provoke. This is the main way we are going to get our wrath back. This is our generator. Spamming hammers at 10 wrath apiece costs a lot. So this has a cooldown of 20 seconds, and as you'll see with the build, there are abilities that reduce the cooldown of this. So the more hammers that hit enemies, the faster this cools down, so I can use it again, thereby continuing just to spend more hammers and then some. But this, aside from the main ability, which we are using it for, to generate 30 wrath, you taunt all enemies and generate 5 wrath for every enemy taunted. So you taunt a ton of enemies, you automatically generate 30 wrath. You can generate more if there's more enemies around you. Too scared to run, taunted enemies will move and attack slower for a short period amount of time. So it's also mitigating the damage there as well. This is an ability where a lot of people kind of go back and forth with what to use. I like to use Laws of Hope while it's active, empowering the law surrounding you and your allies with a shield, which is nice. That helps more damage mitigation, as well as with Wings of Angels. You can also run through enemies unhindered. So basically, so this and Iron Skin both act as a defensive buff, but also to just kind of move through everything faster. So then we have, under my circle ability, Akarat's Champion, obviously, Explode with Fury, with Profit. So when I do that, gain additional armor. It's basically a damage and a big defense buff with Profit. And if I take fatal damage, I would basically get an extra life, which is nice. Or Fake Die, as my friends and I have coined it. Falling Sword, another big piece to this build. Basically, it runs off of Blessed Hammer and Falling Sword with Provoke. But basically, this is, when you look at the set that I'm going to show you, this is going to make it so when I cast Falling Sword, it's going to give me a defensive buff as well. That's the big thing. I'll take less damage, 50%. Launch yourself into the heavens and come crashing down on your enemies, and reduce the cooldown for each enemy hit by Falling Sword. So the basic piece of it is, once I get to a point in time where I can't immediately obliterate everything with my hammers, I'm going to be casting Falling Sword, spamming hammers, using Provoke, using Iron Skin, and Laws of Hope to help me push through. As for our passives, our first passive, we're using Fervor. By wielding a one-handed weapon, your attack speed is increased by 15% and all cooldowns are reduced by 15. Usually I like to go with Heavenly Strength, especially when you're leveling, because you can use a two-handed weapon and your item pool becomes a lot larger as far as the items you can use. We are using Fervor because our main weapon is a one-handed weapon, which goes strictly with our hammers. So in that case, there would be no point to using Heavenly Strength. So we're going to get that attack speed and all cooldowns. That's the big thing, the reduction in the cooldowns. So the big thing, indestructible, especially running a hardcore character. Obviously, once I die, I'm dead, but I can cheat death every 60 seconds. So that's nice. Instead of dying, I'll become immune to damage. I'll gain 35% increased damage, which really is not that big of a deal. Gain 107,000 life per second. Again, not really that big of a deal, but for 5 seconds. So I'll be immune for 5 seconds, but the big thing is when the screen flashes red, I know I'm in a big world of hurt. I need to get out of whatever I am using some of my speed and mitigation abilities. Holy Cause is our third passive. The amount of damage dealt by your weapon is increased by 10, so it's a straight damage buff, and whenever you deal holy damage, you heal up to 1% of your total life. So again, damage and health, so a little more mitigation. And then Finery, gain 1.5% strength for every gem socketed into your gear. So let's count them up real quick. I got 1 in my weapon, 1 in my helmet. I'm not sure if the gems count for my amulets and my rings, but if I do, that's 2 rings and an amulet, so there's 5. And then we go to the chest, which is 3, the pants that are 2. You know, we've got a lot of gems going there, so that will increase our strength pretty significantly. Now, the fun stuff. We're using Joanna's argument because increases the attack speed and damage of Blessed Hammer by 100%. So it allows me to basically spam hammers at a very quick rate. Now we're going to go through really quick the Seeker of the Light set. This is nice because in Season 20, you have the opportunity to get this set by completing the season journey. And it's the set bonuses. Every use of Blessed Hammer that hits an enemy reduces the cooldown of Falling Sword and Provoke. So again, you use Blessed Hammer to hit enemies. That reduces the cooldown of Falling Sword and the cooldown of Provoke. The 4-piece set bonus, you take 50% less damage for 8 seconds after landing with Falling Sword. So again, spamming the hammers, landing down with your Fallen Sword. And then the 6-piece set, you increase the damage of Blessed Hammer by 12,000% and Falling Sword by 1,000%. So that's really nice. So that's just a straight huge damage boost to all of your abilities. We're going to be using the Traveler's Pledge set, the Endless Walk. Unfortunately, I'm still looking for the ring. That's one of the 2 pieces I need. I need both of those rings. And then I will have my set. But basically, while I'm moving, damage taken is reduced by up to 50%, and while I'm standing still, damage dealt is increased. So that's a straight defensive and offensive boost, which is nice. We have to use Gabriel's Vamp Bracers. This, when your Blessed Hammer hits 3 or fewer enemies, 81% of its wrath cost is refunded. That's huge. We want to make sure we take advantage of that completely because we're going to be spamming hammers. We have no generating ability except for our buff. The Guard of Johanna matches with Johanna's argument very well. Blessed Hammer damage is increased by 260% for the first 3 enemies it hits. And then we're going to go down to the rings. I'm using Volkatha's Wedding Band. This isn't the ring for my build. It's just the ring that I'm using. I just drain life from enemies around you. I don't know. I could use any number of rings that are probably better than that one, but I figured, you know, hardcore defensive, we're trying to do whatever we can. Convection of Elements is a must for almost any build. It's just a straight huge damage boost. You gain almost 200% increased damage to a single element for 4 seconds, and it rotates around. Arcane, Cold, Fire, Holy, Lightning, Physical, and Poison, which depending upon the skills you're using, we're using quite a bit of these. And then we have the rest. And then we've got Sacred Harness. Judgment gains the effect of Debilitate Rune and is cast at your landing location when you cast Falling Sword. So basically when we cast Falling Sword, it's going to cast Judgment with Debilitate. So this is Judgment and then Debilitate. So what Judgment is going to do is you pass Judgment on all enemies in the area, mobilizing them for a short period of time, and then Debilitation is increasing that. So that's the build, basically. I like to use the Follower, especially if I push higher, greater rifts, mainly because he's got the heal ability, which he'll give you a nice little heal. He'll provide life regeneration, and he'll also apply resource generation. So it's kind of nice. I need to get him better gear, better loot. In fact, I don't think I have better loot for him, but that's okay. If I'm farming, going really quick, I will use the Scoundrel, and the main reason for that is because with him, he's got the nice critical hit, increases the critical hit chance for you on the Scoundrel, so that's pretty nice. My buddy is requesting me to play with him, so we're probably going to cut this a little bit short, but that's basically the build that I am using. As far as the cube powers I'm using right now, I'm using Faithful Memory. Each enemy hit with Falling Sword increases the damage of Blessed Hammer by 80% for 10 seconds, and it stacks 10 times. And then the Hammer Jammers. Enemies take 400% increased damage from your Blessed Hammers for 10 seconds after you hit them with a Blind, Immobilize, or Stun. So this is kind of where these two work together in tandem. Shrines and Pylons will spawn enemy champions. So that's kind of a big thing. Yeah. Let's see if I can find the Obsidian Ring. What we want to have here there it is. Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. Reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you hit with a resource spending attack. It doesn't do it for all, but it will do it for one. But every hammer I hit, every time I cast it, it's going to reduce one of my skills cooldowns by 1 second. So if I cast 5 hammers, it could potentially reduce Provoke by 5 seconds. Or if Provoke comes back into play to being used after 5 seconds, then it might do my, either one of my damage / speed mitigating abilities. So that's a big thing. I'm going to cut it short here, guys. That's the build. Hopefully I'll make the next video soon, and then you'll be able to actually see the build in action as I push Greater Rift. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.